everyone. This is Erin Ashley Simon, your host for Presence of Minds, powered by Cloud9 and in partnership with Kaiser Permanente. Today is episode 4, and on this episode, we will focus on personal stories from successful women in the gaming spotlight. As our guests have forged a career within an industry that oftentimes does not show love, respect, or tolerance for them. We'll touch on different factors that can lead to increased stress, anxiety, and depression, and we'll also share recommendations to the community on different ways to process, cope, and build resiliency. Now, before we get to them, I'm going to do just a brief intro for both of them. We have AnneMunition, a gamer, streamer, and content creator, and has many video games playing, mostly maining Rainbow Six Siege, Overwatch, and PUBG. And we have bnans, a variety streamer who primarily focuses on Valorant and Rainbow Six Siege. And I'm really excited to talk to these ladies today because they are both successful in their own ways and they both have unique experiences that they're going to be shedding a light on today's episode. And bnans, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Before we get into the nitty gritty of mental health conversations, I gotta ask the most important question. Tell me about your pets. I feel like for me, pets, I have a dog. He's so adorable. And pets are so, I don't know about you guys, but for my dog is like a comforting family member during hard times and in so many different ways. And I saw on your guys' social media, and I believe you have a dog, being as you have a cat. Tell me a little bit about them.
A cat. She's got 3 cats.
That's so many
Oh,
cats.
wow, 3 cats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so tell me about all your cats and all your pets.
I have 3 Bengals, and they are all very active and playful and very cute and sweet, and I love cats, so they're perfect animals for us since we just stay at home and play video games.
And what about you?
I have a dog and a cat. I'm mostly a dog person, but this is my first time having, like, a cat as my own pet, and it's been really great. I love it. She's super sweet? Cute? That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
She is cute.
Yeah.
Well, and for you, when it comes to dogs, how has your dog been there for you during your hard times? I know for me, whenever I'm having a difficult time, my dog will cuddle up against me, and it just changes my energy. What about for you?
Um, my dog is, she's a very interesting character. I had a dog before, who would, like, how animals can do that thing where they, like, sense your emotions and they're like, "Oh, you're
Hmm.
sad," um, "I feel sad for you," and they just wanna, like, snuggle or whatever. My dog is
Yeah.
not like that. She doesn't care if I'm sad. She's like, "Let's go outside." Like, "Come on, loser, let's go." She doesn't care. I could be, like, sick on the sofa, like, dying, and she's just like, "No, I wanna go outside." So, she doesn't care. She's just
And
like
then
that.
and Venus for you. I'm sorry, I'm not a cat person, so I've never dealt with cats. And but for you, how have your 3 cats, whether they've entertained you, whether they comfort you, how have your cats been instrumental for you?
That reminds me of, like, a situation where a few months ago I was pretty sick, and I was on the couch for, like, 3 days, and one of my cats, like, literally would not leave my side,
Mhm.
and I thought it was just so sweet that, like, they can tell, you know? And, uh and they're just, like, all around just so, like I spend so much time with them, and, like, they just make me so much happier, like, if I have, like, a hard day or whatever, I just go out there and, like, hang out with my cats, so I know it's
Mhm.
kinda weird, but they just I just love hanging out with them, and I don't know, they just help me de-stress a little bit?
Oh yeah, for sure. They either de-stress or sometimes they stress you out if they like unplug
Oh,
something and when you're in the middle of streaming or playing or something like that. Has it ever happened?
we literally had to change all of our doorknobs yesterday, actually, because my cats were, like, opening all the doors and, like, locking themselves in the rooms, and 'cause the doorknobs were, like, the ones where, like, you pull them down, so we literally had to change every doorknob in the house to, like, keep them from opening our doors.
Oh my gosh. And has your dog or your cat ever like done anything like that, or like when you're in the middle of streaming accidentally like unplug something?
We had to evacuate, due to the fires, like, I don't
Oh.
know, 2 weeks ago or something like that, and, we went to stay with my sister, who lives also in Southern California, and our kitten, we took her with us, of course, and she somehow figured out how to lock herself in the room, So we left, and then when we came back, the door was locked, and so we had to try and figure out how to like break into the bedroom because she had like locked herself in there. So
Oh my gosh, yeah. Pets do the craziest things, but that breaking in is actually a great segue to this next question. Talk to us a little bit about how you guys broke into the careers that you both have, and who inspired you to pursue a career in gaming. Nance, we're gonna start with you first.
Yeah, I watched a lot of like YouTube content and watched a few YouTubers who like really got me into the idea that you can even play video games and record it and like either stream it or upload it. So I started just honestly just watching a lot of YouTube. And then it wasn't until like a couple years ago I like really found Twitch. And it was honestly like a few people like Anna included, like I just like saw community in like a few streamers and like that they actually had a community and thought it was really, really cool. And I started streaming myself and, I don't know, like, it's just been a really cool journey that I never even knew existed until, like, pretty recently.
And then Anne, what about you?
yeah, I mean, like Hannah, I've been playing video games pretty much my entire life, and after I graduated college, I was working as a graphic designer in LA, and I started watching streams on Twitch when I was just in my free time when I was working. And I just thought it would be cool to try, and I was like, I don't know, I'll just give it a shot, and when I'm home from work, play some Minecraft and people can hang out, and it was really fun. I had a really good time with it. And I just kind of took off from there, and I just have been doing that now for it's been 6.5 years, I guess. So yeah.
Oh, oh wow, no, that's great. I think it's so interesting because for me growing up, I didn't even know that this was a potential career option to be even working in the space that I'm working in. And I don't know about for you guys, but when did you realize that this was not only the right path for you, but when did you realize that wow, like I can actually turn this into a career? And I didn't think that I could originally. And with you, how did you make that transition from the work that you previously did into the career you have now?
Um, for me, it was about hitting kind of the tipping point where I realized that I could be more successful as a streamer if I was able to put more time into it, but I had to work my regular full-time job, and so that was taking up most of my time. So it's like, okay, I hit this point where I'm like, I can't continue working full-time while also trying to build this other thing on the side. And it was kind of at that point, and also at the point that I realized that I was making enough just from streaming alone that I would be able to afford my bills and things like that. So I called my mom and I was talking to her and I was like, I don't know, I think I am at the point where I need to like try this and like maybe given my 2 weeks and quit my job. And she was like, just go for it. You should just try and see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does, then something cool might happen. And I just took that dive, and it's been a really cool experience.
Binance, what about for you?
Kind of the same thing. Like I was working a job too. I had a career in marketing for a long time and I was doing both. I was streaming full time and also like working. And I told myself if I hit like certain goals, whether it be like certain growth or anything like that, I would eventually quit my job. And a time came where I was offered to join a team, and be on like an org. And I figured like with that and like hitting more goals and things like that, that it was probably time that I could pursue streaming full time. It was definitely a little bit scary at first because like quitting your job is really terrifying. But I knew like my community felt really solid and where things were going just felt right. So I just made the decision to quit.
And let's expand a little bit on that for you both. You both made that decision to quit your jobs. Now, I know when you're going through that process, it could be a struggle, right? And for different people, there's different reactions. Some people may feel a sense of anxiety. Some people may feel, other sorts of feelings. How did you guys make that process like within yourself, mentally, emotionally? How did you guys go through that process to the point of where you were like, all right, I'm ready to make that leap? Because taking that leap and taking that risk can be scary. So how are you able to do it, Finance?
It took a lot of time, a lot of thinking. I think I even like whenever I gave my notice, it was like a month's notice before like I ended up leaving, just to give them time and give me time. But it was definitely, you know, a hard decision and I felt like pretty anxious doing it, but I think as long as like I feel like I did it right. Like I took extra time to think about it. I talked to a couple people. I talked to my mom included, and some friends, and saw what they thought, and it just felt like a good decision.
And for you, what was that emotional or thought process that you went through?
Um, yeah, it's very anxiety inducing. I again, like I said, I talked to my mom and I told her like I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to be successful. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this for the rest of my life. And she told me, she laughed and she said, honey, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. And of course, she's like twice my age because she's my mom. And that moment really resonated with me and like stuck with me of like, you could be 50, you could be 67 years old, and you could still not know necessarily what your path is. And just because you decide to try something different, that doesn't mean that you're locked into that path for the rest of your life. You don't have to do one thing for eternity. There's always like things on Twitter and stuff about like Harrison Ford didn't start acting until he was like in his 40s, and like there's all sorts of stories like that. So it's like you don't have to be locked in to one thing. And so I was like, all right, well, we're just gonna try it, see how it goes, and if it works out, it does, and if not, then I'll just do something different.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, age isn't always a determining factor for your own personal success. Everyone has their different paths. I mean, I started in this industry at 26 and now I'm 28. And other people start earlier and some people start later. It's just what works best for you. And now that you guys are in this scene and you guys have a career in this space, how have you seen gaming transform, in your eyes? We've seen various transformations with streaming and gaming, via pop culture, via new technology, new organizations, the development of esports. In what ways have you seen gaming change when it came to just the scene overall? And
I think in general, like gaming and especially streaming and content creation has become way more mainstream, with people like Ninja going on Jimmy Fallon and stuff like that, like showing the world what this is and that it can be a career. When I first got started, there were not that many people who were streaming and not that many people who were streaming as a full-time job. With like gaming specifically, I kind of feel like it's all when you look at it from, when you look back on it, it's just kind of the same thing over and over and over again, that it just history repeats itself of like this game rises to the top, then this other game rises to the top, and people kind of jump from game to game in terms of like content creation. And like there was a day when Fortnite wasn't the number one um, game on Twitch, and like now I don't even think it is anymore. It's probably like Valorant or something else, and like Among Us and stuff. Like these kinds of trends that just go and come and go. And I think mostly the big thing that I would say has changed is like esports has kind of exploded in popularity. There's like lots of esports that are on like ESPN channels and stuff now, and that kind of thing. And I think just the knowledge that people have, the general public has, and the acceptance that they have, that it's not weird for you to be like, oh, I'm a content creator. They'll still ask you 1,000 questions, but they like know what it is at least, whereas they did not
in-
when it first got started.
Listen, even now, I feel like some people are still trying to figure out what that exactly means. And I mean, but that's because the definition changes. Your guys' role is constantly changing, it's developing the same way that gaming is, the same way that esports is. And there's some people that are now getting on board with everything and they're trying to still figure it out. But I mean, at the end of the day, hey, you guys are still successful. So whether they get it or not, doesn't really matter. But Binance, for you, how have you seen this industry change in front of your eyes?
It's funny because like my answer is kind of similar to Anne's because like I haven't even been streaming like as long as she has, but I have noticed like the same kind of trends. But like things I've seen is like, games like Among Us or like games where like it's very social heavy. Those are kind of like blowing up right now. So it seems like the gaming industry and like Twitch and all that kind of makes shifts. Um, it goes from like esports and being like very competitive to being more social, and everyone just wants to watch like different things all the time. But then there's like games like Minecraft, which are still huge on Twitch right now. Um, I don't know. It's just exactly what she said. Like, people are just trying to watch all different kinds of things. We're all trying to play different kinds of games, and there's just so much content. It's just growing so fast.
It really is. It really is. Like you said, Among Us is one of those very popular social ones. Now, I want to dive into that game a little bit because I didn't realize one, how hard it is to lie. Two, and I didn't realize how many of my friends are actually really good liars. And so, my question to you guys is it's a two-part question. When you're playing with your friends, who's the best liar and who's the worst liar? I feel like I'm the worst liar with my friends. But it's really interesting to see that dynamic. So when you're playing, who's the best imposter and who's the worst imposter in the game? And I want to start with you.
I've only played it like 4 times, so I honestly don't know. It's not really, I think I don't really enjoy that game in general. I've tried
Mm,
it and I've had fun with like certain groups. Like I think I played with Hannah actually one time and it was like that was the most fun that I had actually had. Sometimes it feels like it just ends up people trying to like be the one in the spotlight, but when you're in a group of like 10 people, you can't really be trying to be like the content creator who's like the one on top of everything, you know? Um, and I'm a pretty low key person in general. I think I'm a pretty like a socially anxious person. So like when you
mm.
have 6 people all trying to talk over top of each other and everyone trying to be like king content creator, I just get kind of overwhelmed and that's not really for me anyway. But I know Hannah
That's
has played that game a lot.
I mean, hey, that's okay. I mean, different games for different people, you know? I think that that's what makes streaming so amazing. You got so many different content creators that like to play and enjoy different games. But Venus, for you, since you play Among Us a lot, what's your experience with that from a social perspective? And which one of your friends are the best imposters, and which one of your friends need to go to imposter school to get better at it?
I mean, I feel like I needed to go to imposter school, honestly. I don't play it like nearly as much as like the people I'll play with do. So like I'll play in like lobbies and like they're just like the best liars I've ever seen, and I'm like, I was over there, and then they're like, you're out, you're
Yeah,
imposter. Like it's just so hard.
can hear it in Hannah's
But
voice.
yeah. But overall, like, I think it's a very, like, fun game only because the social aspect of it. Like, you get to, like, play with people who you would never really play with. Like, I'm not gonna play with someone who really plays Fortnite because like, I don't play Fortnite. So, like, things like that were really cool. I thought that was the best part, honestly, is, like, just meeting people from, like, different areas of gaming or different industries even, who are just, like, in the space. There's been a lot of really cool streams that have gone on because of Among Us. It just is a game that, like, anyone can play. And although it may give you anxiety or it may feel like really hard or you don't really understand like the tasks and stuff, it's just a simple game that I think is really cool and brings people together, which is neat. Um, but I do feel very stressed when I play it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Now, this is actually a follow-up question because you guys bring up the level of anxiety that can come with playing certain games. Um, does that play a factor a little bit into the games that you guys decide to play? Of course, you're going to play games that you really love and enjoy, but also, when there's new games, various different content creators try these different games for content, for fun, and etc. So how does that, the level of, I guess, anxiety and stress that can come with certain games, how does that play in determining like what you are probably going to try and play and maybe what you're like, this is not for me. And I would like to start with you for this one.
I think that there is good anxiety and bad anxiety, and so it kind of depends on what kind of anxiety the game is giving you. For example, like people who get nervous about going on roller coasters, but they still want to go because it's like an adrenaline rush. That's kind of a good anxiety. Um, and for me, like the type of anxiety that Among Us causes for me specifically because of my personality, I think is a bad anxiety because um, it makes me kind of shut down when like everyone's just yelling over top of each other and I don't want to compete, so I just stop participating really. I just kind of do my thing. Which I think is not really what you want when you're playing a game like that. But I play loads of Escape from Tarkov, which is the most stressful game I think I've ever played in my entire life, but I love it and it's like the good kind of anxiety because I feel like that adrenaline rush that you would get when you're like doing something that kind of scares you but also is like really rewarding.
Oh yeah, definitely. Beanans, what about you?
The same thing like Anne kind of said, where like you have good anxiety and bad. I feel like Among Us gives me like both a good anxiety, sometimes a bad, depending on like how loud everyone is. But for the most part, I like playing it, despite the anxiety, just because like it helps push me to like a different level, or like helps me like maybe get more comfortable in like certain situations, or like just with different people, like things like that, being more social. But overall, I think that I mean, I'll definitely play a game that gives me good anxiety, of course. Like, I feel like Valorant does that too. I'm in like a 1v like 3 situation, everyone's watching me, I'm the only one left, and like I'm gonna feel nervous or get anxious. But there's always like those clutch moments, sometimes, and like that's just really what makes you feel very, very good about a game. So those kind of games I love to play them. But if it gives me bad anxiety, then no, I definitely won't want to play. I just won't really even try it after that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Valorant, and then you guys also play Rainbow Six Siege. And when it comes to first-person shooters, what about them kind of gives you guys that level of good anxiety, that like the pressure's on, but and you're having a little bit of anxiety, a little bit stressed, but like it feels good. It especially feels good when you win too. What about first-person shooters bring that upon you, bnans?
You don't wanna let people down. You don't wanna lose, especially if they're your friends. So whenever you know, like, everyone's watching you, it can definitely be a little scary or give you anxiety. But, um, I mean, even if, like, you end up not hitting your shots, or, like, not, like, clutching a 1v whatever moment, it's still, like, really cool whenever, like, you get to see yourself grow. You get to, like, maybe feel less anxiety as time goes on, or, like, you learn different situations that might make you feel differently than they did before. It's just like a learning experience overall with any game like that. So, um, I would feel like that's like a good anxious, like whenever you can feel yourself like improving and growing, and your friends are all like okay with maybe you missing a headshot on someone or something.
Yeah, that it's, whether it's 1v1 or a team initiative, and just like the overall concept of the pressure's on for you to, and then when you win, it's just a sigh of relief is the greatest. Now, the only thing I don't like with the pressures and the stress that comes with only be able to fight 1v1 with fists in the gulag for a Call of Duty, that annoys me. And when it comes to even like certain guns you can only use, but that's for another day. And for you, what kind of level of good anxiety, or what other reasons do first person shooters, like, I guess, give you when it comes to like handling the stress, handling the anxiety? And even though, like you said, there's different kinds of it, it's still one that you in a way enjoy the experience still.
Yeah.
What do FPSs do for you for that?
Well, specifically for me, like Rainbow Six and Tarkov, they're it feels like a culmination of all of the time and effort that you have put into it. It's your it's all the knowledge that you have of the map and your opponents and the characters that you're playing. If it's like Siege, there's different abilities and all that kind of thing. And um when you succeed in those moments, it really feels like you succeeded because you outsmarted your opponent. Um and in that way, it can be like a really fast game of chess where it's like you have to take in everything that has happened during the round and apply that knowledge to succeed. So I think that rewarding feeling for me is what makes me really um, kind of look past the stressful side of it and actually enjoy it, because like I said, it's that adrenaline rush of like succeeding and knowing that you succeeded because of all of the effort and time that you've put into learning how to be good at that game and being better than the other people.
And when it comes to the first person shooter community, a lot of times when people have conversations about the community, then they address the toxicity within the community. But I would like to talk actually about the positive things that come from playing first person shooters, and those you guys interact with. So for you two, how has the culture of this community changed in a positive manner that you both noticed during your time playing games like Valorant and even Rainbow Six Siege and other ones? And start with you.
Yeah, I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. But I think that in general, there are more people. It's hard to, like I don't have statistics to back this up, but it feels like for me that there has been an kind of a swing toward people being more accepting of hearing women in their lobbies and that kind of thing. Um, I I I know that the question is to like focus on, a positive thing. I also want to acknowledge that there's of course stories of the negative that pop up every now and then. But I do think in general the trend has been more toward positive things where I don't feel like every time I say, like if I make a call out in a game, half the time people say something like weird and half the time they just act normally. Um, and I think that half percentage is way better than what it used to be. But I think also part of it is that people will react because they know my name or they know my voice. So then they'll hear me say something and they'll be like, oh, it's Anne. Um, which isn't necessarily a reaction to my gender or anything like that. So
Bnans, for you, how have you seen, the community culture change? Whether it's additional positive ways or some progress you've seen. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm not really sure if it has to do with like the kind of game that you're playing. Like with Siege, I feel like if the community felt a little bit different than like when I play Valorant, because I play a lot of Valorant, and I play on anonymous mode, and for the most part, I feel like I'll talk and no one says anything. It's almost like they don't even acknowledge like if I'm a girl or not, and I feel like that's a little like definitely different than what I've experienced in the past with playing Siege. So I don't really know if it's like based off of the game so much as like it is off of the community as a whole, within like first person shooters, but it's definitely a much more enjoyable experience. And it just feels way better and, nicer to play with teams like that.
Yeah, and with the communities, you come across different individuals, you come across other women that are within this scene, but you also come across some people who are interested in potentially getting into streaming or potentially interested in being part of an organization or do the things that you guys do. So, how do you encourage other women to pursue their careers or pursue specific passions within gaming, even though oftentimes and sometimes there's level of sexism, there's level of toxicity, there's these negative things that happen. How do you encourage women to continue forth with what they're passionate about despite all the challenges that may come? Binance?
Well, the way I always like put it is that those things are going to be said no matter what. It's all about how you really want to deal with it or how you can deal with it. Some people literally like they can't cope with that. So they will maybe just not even use voice chat at all. And that's fine. It's basically about like what you can cope with and how much you will tolerate. And if it makes you that uncomfortable that you don't want to use voice chat, then that's totally fine. But I feel like whenever I first started streaming or even playing games, I played a lot of Overwatch before I even started streaming, and, I felt pretty uncomfortable at first, like, with open comms, but as time got on, I just really learned how to deal with it on my own, either whether it be ignoring it completely or just shutting it out or just muting that person if they're being, like, that disrespectful, and, I've noticed, like, over time that there's a lot of good that also comes with playing with random people on the internet. I've met a lot of really cool people, even if it's just randomly, just in a game, on open mic. I've met so many cool people and just added them to my friends list, and that's huge. Like that's just really rewarding, like playing with people like that. And I feel like as much as there's bad on the internet, there's so much good, and that's what helped me like kind of block out that bad. If that helps.
yeah.
And what about you?
Yeah, it's really hard to ignore the negativity because people who are negative are just so much louder than people who are positive. It's always the people who don't have nice things to say that are going to scream at the loudest because they want to be heard. I think in general, like when people ask me about streaming specifically and getting into streaming, and if I'm thinking specifically about encouraging other young women to stream, um, I think in general this advice applies to everyone regardless of gender. However, specifically for women, it's a bit extra special because it's like if you don't do things because people are going to make fun of you for doing them, then you're literally never going to do anything because I throughout my life have been made fun of for the way that I talk, the way I laugh, the way I smile, the way I walk, the way I look, etc., etc. Like literally every single facet of my life, someone will make fun of you. Um, and if you let that control your choices and if you let that control what you want to do with your life, then you're never actually going to do what you want to do. And so it's really hard to put that stuff on the side. It's really hard to ignore those really loud voices. That's one of the reasons that I really enjoy going to conventions because it's really easy for people to sit on their keyboards and say mean things, but when you go to a convention, it's always like the nice people that you're meeting because they actually like want to go to your meet and greet and say hello to you. And um, those keyboard warriors are just like never gonna actually say anything to your face because they're actually kind of cowardly about it. And so that's why this year especially has been, I think, pretty tough for a lot of content creators because I think going to those conventions, I know for me, is pretty revitalizing. Um, and it helps you really look at the positive things because there are really like a lot of really positive experiences, like Hannah's saying. There's a lot of really nice people. It's just that they're generally quite a bit quieter than the people who want to scream negative things. Um, so I guess in summation, just to do what you want to do, heck what anyone else says, and try to focus on the positive.
And what are some of your guys' coping mechanisms or kinds of support that you guys have to navigate some of the challenges and obstacles that come with being front facing public figures when it comes to streaming? Like you said, the internet is not always kind to not only women, but just people in general. So, how do you guys navigate these obstacles and challenges in a way that's healthy to you? And first, and then bnans after.
Um, I think it's just in my personality, and I don't know how to like share that with other people as a tool for them to use. I think that growing up, um, my mom instilled in me a lot of self-confidence, and um, I think generally also a lot of my personality is pretty apathetic, which is not always a good thing. But I just don't care most of the time when people want to try and tear me down. Sometimes I like snap back at people just because it's fun to be sarcastic for me. But I just don't. I just can't. I just can't let other people determine how I feel about myself. Otherwise, I'm gonna collapse because, like I said, there's always gonna be people who are just gonna be making fun of me for literally every part of my life. And I have to learn how to celebrate myself for myself, and I don't know how I necessarily like do that, I guess. I think disconnecting from the internet is pretty important, not putting your entire life on it, and that makes it kind of hard for me sometimes with streaming. Um, I think a lot of times that I'm not a super good content creator because I don't post pictures on my Instagram every day. I don't share what I'm doing with my life all the time. And I think a lot of times that's when you look at people who are like really, really famous, like well-known content creators, it feels like their entire life is on the internet, like everything they're doing, every moment of their lives. And I'm not like that. I have to put my phone down and walk away from it and go outside for a couple hours. And I think you just have to find what works for you, honestly.
bnans, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, with like comments on the internet, you're always gonna have negativity. And I feel like I see that on any streamer, anyone in the public spotlight. And the way that I've like learned to deal with it more is trying to like there was a point when I started streaming where like I'd read them out and not everybody comment of course, but like I would try to like, maybe snap back sometimes or like you can't really control it. If you read something that like may make you upset. And it's just been like so apparent that the way you respond to things can definitely either egg people on or make them go away. And a lot of the times people just come in for a reaction. They may not even like dislike you or want to say or really like care what you look like or how you talk or anything like that, how you play. They just want to get a reaction from you.
Hmm.
And that's like taught me kind of to not even read it. Like just like don't even look at it or maybe like a mod will handle it. But not giving people like that reactions has helped my experience overall. And I just have learned to like not take that with me. Um I don't know, it's been helpful for me. That's how I've like dealt with it. And once I'm done with the computer, I try to just leave it behind. And like Anne said earlier, like one bad comment, obviously, like you may have hundreds of people in your chat, but one mean thing that someone said may stick with you just because that bad person always stands out more than the good. And over time, I've just tried to take in more of those nice people, and really really visualize how many nice people there are in the chat as opposed to that one like mean person.
Hannah's example is, or Hannah is a good example of someone who takes the high road. And I'm a good example of someone who likes to make an example out of other people. So I like Hannah's like the way she says it. I'm like, that sounds really great. Man, I
Mhm.
would love if I could just ignore them. But sometimes, man, sometimes people are just asking for it and I gotta give it to them. So, um,
Yeah, that's fair though. I mean, like I've done that before too. Like you just want to like make fun of them, just for like being there and like
you
whatever
wanna
they
make me
say
feel
is just
bad? No, you're gonna feel bad.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've done that too. But like
It's
just
not always mature, but it feels
yeah,
good sometimes.
it
So,
does.
Yeah. I mean, listen, sometimes it's sometimes you don't want to snap back, but you just have that urge to just be like, "Nah, I can't, I'm not going to take it." But then also sometimes just ignoring it and focusing on the good and the positive is a good way too. And everyone has different ways of dealing with these stressful moments. But the one thing I have to say is that no matter what, the greatest power that any person can have is their inner peace. And as long as no one can impact the inner peace, no matter how you react, you could work through it in any situation. And speaking of working through, and you kind of touched on it a little bit when you're saying as a content creator you don't really share certain aspects of your personal life. There are aspects of your personal lives that you don't share. There are aspects of your guys' personal lives that people find out. What is it like distinguishing your private life from your streaming life? And how do you guys create that healthy barrier between the things, especially when you have fans and individuals that want to learn more about you and it's like you give a little bit, but how do you establish that healthy barrier so you can still have that private life to yourselves?
yeah, this is what I was kind of what I was saying is I think that this makes me not a good content creator because I I have a very I have a very wide moat between myself and like my streaming life and my personal life. Um, I just can't be on my phone like posting everything I do all the time, and I think sometimes that is a detriment to my career. But like you were saying with your inner peace, it's important for me to kind of have that disconnect. And I think a big thing that I'm like realizing is that I'm kind of a paranoid person, and I think it's honestly not a terrible thing in this job because people are you never know like who's watching you. Um, and there have been some like weirdos out there, you know. Um, so I think it's important to establish a boundary and to acknowledge or to know that you don't really owe anyone who is watching you anything other than what you are choosing to give to them. There's a lot of people who act entitled to knowing everything about your life, and um, you can't let them bully you into breaking your own boundaries that you set for yourself. If people are asking you questions and you don't want to answer them, you literally do not have to answer them. If somebody could ask me, um, "Hey, what kind of tree is that behind you?" I don't have to answer them. Like I can, like it's just a tree, it's not a big deal. Um, but it's like it could be a really innocuous thing. And I think I talk about this a lot with like info security online and social engineering. You know, all those like security questions that are like, what was the name of your first dog? What street did you live on when you were a kid? And it seems like it's not a big deal because you're just like, somebody asks you like, oh, what was your first pet's name? And you answer them because you're not really thinking about it. And that's how people, end up getting hacked. So I think it's really important to keep those kinds of things in mind and to realize that like you don't have to answer literally every question that people ask you. Um, like I had this is actually kind of poignant because a guy came to my door over my lunch break. He was with some kind of solar company, and he was asking me if I had thought about getting solar, which I have actually. Um, and he was like, "Oh, what company are you working with?" And I don't know why, but it just ticked something in my brain where I was like, "Why does this random stranger need to know what solar company I have decided to use for my home?" And I was like, he doesn't need to know. So I told him, I was like, well, I don't know. We're going to figure that out later. And he asked me like 4 times. And I was like trying to close the door. And he was like, what solar company? And I was just like, no, goodbye. And it's just like, you have to decide. You have to like have that moment in your brain where you're just like, something is off here. This person does not need to know this. And I feel like I've ranted for long enough. So Hannah, please say something.
No, I mean what you're saying is right. Like there's people on the internet who just like it may seem very innocent, but in your chat they'll be like, "Hey, what kind of internet provider do you use?" And like although that may seem like very innocent information, it's very important to like keep like you don't have to, of course, but I choose to like keep that kind of information private just because people will narrow down like where you live. Like they're always trying to piece your life together, and the more you give them, the bigger puzzle they can create. And like they're always gonna keep trying to get more info. So like I definitely feel like my personal life blends into streaming a little bit more than like Ants does, for example. But I also feel like you have to create those barriers for yourself, and you learn this with time is like what people are fishing for, and it's important to try to keep like certain aspects of that private just for your safety. You don't know like who's out there, who may live on your street, who may be your next door neighbor. Like if you don't know your neighbors, I don't really know mine, like things like that. So I just choose to like keep as much as I can private, but also still giving people, like, something, because people really like to know about your life and, how you spend your time and things like that.
Some people are really like detectives, honestly, because like
Yeah.
Hannah and I are actually like friend. I keep pointing this way, but I think she's over here. Um, Hannah and I are actually friends like in real life, and we've hung out. And somebody, you know what somebody asked me, Hannah? Somebody said, "How long did it take you to drive to Hannah's house?"
Yeah.
I was like, "How? Why do you need to know how long it took me to get to her house? That's so weird." They're like trying to
Mhm.
triangulate my position. It's creepy. So you have to be on the lookout for those kinds of things.
Yeah, I've been asked that too. And people also like ask information that I feel like may not be good for me to give just because of like maybe Anne or other friends who
Yeah,
live in the area. So it's like important to like think about your friends too. Like don't just think about like yourself and like the information you're giving for yourself. Think about like maybe you'll tweet out uh something like your internet provider, but then you also tweet out that your friend is close by who
right.
like, may also stream. So like there's a lot of things that like you really have to think about when streaming.
And with that, especially for women, we've seen people talk about the experiences of stalkers and all these different things, and with those boundaries, that helps to protect you. But how do you deal with that level of stress and even anxiety that comes with that? With comes with certain individuals, maybe not respecting that boundaries, or people who don't have the best intentions. How do you guys deal with that from an anxiety and stress level?
I think you, as a content creator, have to be willing to cut people out. And like, I mean, I've had people in my community for many years, and I'm just like, we'll reach the point where I'm like, having you around does not make me feel good when I stream. Um, Seeing your name in the chat makes me feel stressed. And it's always, there's like people who will do that thing where they kind of break the rule, but they don't really break the rule. So you can't ban them. And like, oh, they've been sub for 3 years, but they're always towing the line and always making you feel anxious about something, or like constantly getting into little fights with people. And it just makes the environment feel toxic. And so I think you really have to be willing to kind of bite the bullet there and say, like, I can't allow your presence in this community anymore because of how you're impacting everyone else. And not just that you're breaking the rules, but just your personality is clashing with everyone else's for some reason. And sometimes people can't acknowledge that. They can't see that they're causing a problem, or that they're causing, the fights to start. They think that it's everyone else's problem. um, but it's kind of like when you're driving. If you think that if everyone on the road is an asshole, like maybe you're the bad driver, Um, and people can't see that. They think that they're like the hero in their own story. So it's like you really just have to be willing to say no to people, and to just choose to curate your community with people who you really enjoy having around.
Finance?
I feel like that's definitely a good example and like something that you should do. Like if you're not comfortable with someone, don't have them around. That's just plain and simple. But there's also people that I've dealt with in the past who I've blatantly had to just ignore completely, and that's been a struggle. Just because, like I mentioned before, if you give someone even a block, they may make a new account. They come back.
Yeah.
So people can definitely be like, um, very determined to like learn more about you or to just bother you or to maybe like spread something that they may feel about you. They want other people to feel the same way. So like people are definitely there to like make you feel bad sometimes, and you just have to learn either to get rid of them or to just completely ignore them. And that's been a struggle just because ignoring someone doesn't make you safer. And that's a little scary just because like someone can show up at your house, maybe that person that you ignored or blocked or came back or things like that. And that's something that like I try to take like precautions for, just because you never know who's like going to be lurking around or like who's piecing information about you together, and that's definitely scary to think about.
Yeah, safety is so important for, you guys, other public figures in this space. And it's unfortunate that that has to be a case, but like you said, you have to create those barriers. You have to shut people down if they're making you uncomfortable. But there are some really great individuals in this industry as well, and there are some people who are doing what they can to deal with some of the problems that we see when it comes to toxicity, racism, or even sexism. Is there anyone or any organization in this industry that you would like to highlight that is working towards making positive change in this industry to make it inclusive, diverse, and more comfortable for everyone?
Yes, Dr. Lupo. He is my favorite example of a popular, scruffy white dude who will repeatedly make efforts to include people who are not scruffy white dudes. I love him. He's great. And he has repeatedly, like, he'll invite me to join in events, and I will be the only woman on that event because it's like they'll pick coaches and then the coaches pick their friends. And a lot of those guys are just friends with other guys. And I think Lupo will go out of his way to like find other people who like I think that he and I are friends. I don't mean it to sound like that, but I also think that I think he thinks about those kinds of things and including people of color and people of different genders and sexualities and stuff like that. So
Yeah, he was the first one that came to mind for me too,
yeah,
actually, because
Lupo's
like
great.
he takes an active effort, which is very noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah, he goes out of
definitely
his way.
is. Yeah, he does. He does. I mean, even from my experience with Dr. Lupo, he was one of the people that were really, really speaking up during Black Lives Matter movement. And he also is someone who doesn't tolerate toxicity or anything like that. And it's great to see just all different kind of role models and also streamers and content creators in this space utilizing their platforms to speak up for what they believe in and speak up for what they feel is right. And with that though, it does come scrutiny. It does come sometimes people talking ill about those individuals. And sometimes, there is the challenge of, is this something where I feel like I may lose an opportunity or money, but even still, like I have to do what's right.
Yeah.
Have you guys encountered those moments where, you felt like you had to speak up for what was right, even if that meant you may lose some followers, you may lose some money or anything like that? And what was that experience like for you two?
I mean, I think for me that's been pretty much my entire life. I won't be quiet about something if I feel like it's important to talk about it. And um like I said, I feel like that sometimes it can be pretty frustrating for me because I think that uh I I will speak up about something like mental health, and there's always going to be people in my chat who are not, or in any chat who are just like, oh God, she's a social justice warrior. Oh God, she's a feminazi or whatever. And then I'll see like a male streamer say the exact same thing. And people are like, "Oh, he's such a good guy. Like he's so good for saying this." And I just am boiling inside because I'm like, I'm trying. I'm like doing my best. I want to talk about these things because I think they're important, but it's so hard for me to be taken seriously because people are always going to have that kind of bias. People who are um people who see women as less than are always going to see what I say as something that's like political. It's like having a female character in a video game. Now suddenly this game is political. Um, and it's just that's the most frustrating thing I think about streaming for me. It's not just frustrating, but actually infuriating. Like I get really mad about that because I feel like
Mhm.
I can't voice myself. Um, but I think that I definitely have always had that in my mind that like I know that that's going to happen. I know people are going to react that way. I'm gonna say it anyways. So I'm just gonna keep, doing what I think is right. Even if it's gonna impact my career, I just don't care.
Yeah, understandable. bnans, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, anytime I've like tried to speak up about something that I believe in or just like in general, like talking about it, I feel like some people may get uncomfortable, some people don't have the same um, like thoughts as you or like they aren't on the same page, so like they're gonna unfollow you no matter what. And that's on a lot of different topics. Like I feel like anything like that, if you're talking about like racism or feminism or anything that you can like think of, people are gonna someone's gonna disagree with you, so like you're gonna lose followers because of it. But that shouldn't change who you are or what you believe in. And I think it's important to grow an audience and like have a community of people who are somewhat like minded. Granted, like not everyone's going to be on the same page as you or like feel the same way that you do, but it's important that they, um, aren't just going to like completely bash you for everything that you say. So I've definitely seen some struggles there and lost followers because of it, but it's fine.
I mean, you got to do what you feel is right, and if these individuals are your supporters, they should support those times when you want to speak up on these things that matter to you and also are important for a lot of different people. And and you mentioned how as a woman you'll speak up on certain things and people will kind of like brush it off, but if a guy does, it's just like, oh wow, this is amazing, pat on the back, right? And we always talk about, it's not about entirely being an ally. It's about being an accomplice. And when we say being an accomplice, it is someone who is actually actively changing and wanting to change. And sometimes that requires them to talk to their own communities, or, if it's men, talking to other men in the industry to change the behaviors that are toxic. And so what role do you see? Obviously as women, it's important for us to continue speaking up and encouraging other women and encouraging all different kinds of people, encouraging even, young men, people from LGBTQ plus, all different kinds of communities, and encourage them to enter in. But what can the male leaders, excuse me, what kind of role do they play in this inclusive solution that is needed in the industry to make it more comfortable for everyone, no matter what their background is?
Well, I think that it's really hard for people who are uh if someone has a bias against you for any reason, whether it's your race or your gender, if they have a bias against you, you're not going to be able, or it's going to be extremely difficult for you to convince them to see you as more than just that one thing. Um, People who have bias against women, I'm not going to be able to convince them, or like I said, it's going to be extremely difficult for me to try and advocate for women on behalf of women. And that's why it's really important for, in like that specific situation, for men to be, like you said, not just an ally, but also an accomplice, and to be active in the way that they are discouraging people from treating women poorly and encouraging people to treat women better, whether it's, it doesn't have to be necessarily, it's like something huge, but just when you're like in a lobby and playing some video games and the guy on your like a girl on your team makes a call out and some guy on your team is like, "Oh, is that a girl? Like, what's up, girl? Give me your number," or whatever. You have to be the person, like the girl could say like, "Leave me alone," but that's just going to cause more of a reaction from the person who is antagonizing her. And so it's like you have to be willing to put yourself out there and say like, "Dude, shut up." Because he's going to listen to you more than he's going to listen to the woman. And I think especially for like people in like a minority group, we have basically spent our entire lives fighting, and it's exhausting. And it would be really nice for people to kind of shoulder that burden and to try and say like, um, I'm going to help you out with this situation rather than trying to make you fight this person on your own. I'm going to speak up and tell this person that it's not okay for them to speak to you that way. Um, and maybe what's going to happen is they're just going to direct their rage towards you instead. um, but I think at least you can try and help by being an active voice rather than just like being silent and letting the whole thing play out and not participating in it at all.
And Binance, I kind of want to add a question to that. In addition to, what role the male leaders play, but also how do you go about addressing, folks within the community for, when they're being silent or they're not taking a stand against sexism, and especially if it's a guy, or if it's a male leader, or a male friend that like, how do you address that, and how do you handle those kinds of situations?
Well, I mean, it would depend on the situation because, like, there's been a lot of times where my male friends have spoken up, which is great, and, I've had that even happen with me because, like, a lot of times, like, playing Siege alone, you kinda have to, like, be your own voice, but whenever you're playing with, like, one of your friends and they speak up for you, it feels really, really good. Because, like Anne said, normally that person does just, like, completely shut up, and they're just like, "Okay, well, they told me I was wrong." And I feel like whenever you have friends like that who are male like industry leaders, like their favorite streamer that they watch is now speaking up for like their friend and like comms or just like maybe a random girl, and that like make them also act on that. So I feel like that people don't really realize how much like their actions are influencing their viewers. And I feel like if that happened in a situation where someone didn't speak up for me or like just let me completely get like bashed like in comms, I would probably be upset and I'd make that known to them because I just feel like you should always look out for your friends no matter if it's like a girl or not. Um and when people do that, other people notice and viewers notice, and that may change the way they act. A lot of like our viewers and a lot of viewers on Twitch are also younger, so they're looking up to you too, and if you're being, like, super rude to, like, some girl on the internet, why would they feel like they shouldn't do that too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to take action. It's also important to speak up, and it definitely is important to speak up for these underserved communities and minority groups who, like you said, and are constantly getting these attacking, whether it's verbal or some of these just not appropriate actions that others make upon them. And sometimes the most important thing is when you're in a situation, if you can speak up and stand up for someone, it's important for you to do that. And speaking of taking action, what are some actions that you guys are currently taking, or that you will be taking, or that you would like to take when it comes to encouraging and supporting women both in and out of the gaming community?
Well, I think shows like this, of course, are like a huge thing where it's like putting your voice out there. I mean, I don't spend a lot of my streams talking about this kind of topic, but I think it's important for us to get together and be like, okay, um, here's what our experience is like, and here's what we feel like would be helpful to us for the people who are watching. And so I think things like that. I don't know about Hannah, but I think that we probably get a lot of people asking us to do like kind of collaboration things and inviting other people onto your streams, especially with like Among Us or whatever game you're playing, bringing other people on and kind of building a little streamer community that they can be a part of, that will in a way like shelter them from toxicity or empower them. And I think that I don't know if Hannah thinks about this as like a deliberate action, but I think that um, like inviting people to be a part of groups when you're playing like Among Us and stuff, like I felt I know we're friends, but I also felt like oh, I got picked, it's like that where you're like in gym class, like oh, I got picked to be a part of this, and that makes you feel good. And I think that we both try to do that a lot, where we're like bringing other people into the fold so that they feel like they have a place at least within the streamer community.
Yes, finance. What about for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, just bringing people in who will create, like, a comfortable and, like, safe feeling space for, like, not just us, but also for our viewers. Just because, like, you don't wanna watch a stream that makes you uncomfortable, and we don't wanna feel uncomfortable, so trying to bring new people in who, are like-minded, and also I try to, um like, somewhat publicly support, especially, like, any, like, girls of who are friends of mine who are dealing with, like, depression or, like, instances how we talked about, like, maybe stalkers on the internet or things like that, just to show, like, this is happening because I think a lot of people don't really get to see that part of our lives because a lot of us do try to, for our safety, hide it. So
Mhm.
whenever someone's speaking up about that, it's important for us to back them. And I want to like help people who are dealing with situations that are making them uncomfortable or maybe like risky or scary.
Yes, indeed. And, having conversations like this, supporting your friends behind the scenes, supporting communities, individuals in front of the camera, in front of the scenes is part of the process. And, just as we try to cope and deal with the challenges and obstacles that we go through, also there are many other people who are as well. And at the end of the day, if we all just show a little bit of kindness and support each other during these tough times, it goes a long way. And also, for those who are viewing, if you need a resource to figure out how to cope and deal with anxiety and stress and depression, well, Kaiser Permanente has a resource for you all. You go to findyourwords.org. It's a great resource for you to find ways to deal with some of the challenges and obstacles when it comes to mental health, and also to continue the conversation. If you have a friend that may need that resource, that is a great place to start. Anne and bnans, thank you guys so much for being part of today's episode. It's always great to see you guys stream, but it's even awesome to get your insight and perspective when it comes to mental health and being a woman in the industry. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is great.
You're welcome. You're welcome. To everyone that's tuning in, that's it for episode 4 of Presence of Mind, powered by Cloud9 in partnership with Kaiser Permanente. We will have episode 5 come out. And if you're wondering when, you must follow Cloud9 on social media. My name is Erin Ashley Simon, and I hope you all have an amazing and beautiful night or day, wherever you are. Thank you guys for tuning in.